Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts, sports journalist David Todd, and from SteelersDepot.com, Dave Bryan. Just a couple of Daves, chillin', talking Steelers. Now, here's Dave and Dave.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, another special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2018. I'm Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com. It is August the 14th, 5:30 in Las Vegas. That means it's 8:30 outside of Pittsburgh, where my co-host, partner in crime, Alex Kozora is, fresh back off of his 15th trip to Latrobe, 15th and final trip to Latrobe this year. Alex, happy Tuesday, happy end of training camp day.
Happy Tuesday, Dave. Always a little bittersweet. Apologize for not having a podcast yesterday. That was my decision. It was just a rainy, kind of a crappy day, and I figured let's just kind of wrap everything up into today's show. But yeah, really good day of practice today. Obviously some big injury news we'll get to, but a much more competitive physical practice than what we've had really the last week.
Tell the listeners about how the McLumina did.
You know what? I'm proud of her. She did strong. She went over 100,000 miles, which I know for some cars isn't a much, but for the McLumina, I promise that's a lot. No, she did well. But another reason I was telling you before the show, Dave, we didn't do the podcast yesterday, was I got to practice. They weren't letting us in the campus, so you just have to build the line with every car. And people are just so dumb. Drivers are just sitting in the middle of the road when I'm off to the side. The McLumina cannot idle. If she sits even at like a long red light, she starts to overheat. So I had to shut the car off, and I couldn't have the windows down because it was pouring. So I was just roasting inside of my car, which doesn't have air conditioning to begin with. So, but other than that, she did really strong. I'm proud of her.
Did you get to meet a lot of familiar and unfamiliar faces out there this year?
Yeah, a lot of people came up and said hello. I'm convinced that 95% of Steelers Nation is named Dave because every person I met was named Dave. and then there's you and David Todd and David O and all that. But great talking to people. Always a lot of fun.
It's a conspiracy.
I think so. That's where my tinfoil hat's coming
All right. Let's get after it. I guess we'll start with the Mike Tomlin press conference earlier today. I thought it was a good one. I don't know about you. I thought he talked pretty open about a few things. First and foremost, Ben obviously not going to play Thursday night against the Packers. AB's not going to play. Cameron Hayward's not going to play. Those guys are healthy scratches. Landry Jones, the plan is not to play him. Tomlin said they want to, go with the two younger guys. Talking about Mason Rudolph and Joshua Dobbs. That means Dave gets his wish this time, and now we'll sit and wait to see which one of those two quarterbacks start. You know which way I hope that it goes.
I'm the same. I want Rudolph.
Let's address that first and foremost. You happy with that? With what Mike Tomlin said? What this thing is seemingly setting up to be Thursday night?
Absolutely. Give Dobbs and Rudolph every single rep that you can. And like I just said, I hope Rudolph starts because I want to see him get some action with the ones. Maybe for that fourth preseason game, Dobbs starts. Now, obviously, most of the starters won't play that one, but you could do it that way. But yeah, Jones can get the second quarter next week, and that'll be good enough for him. And he might actually play the whole first half with Ben's situation. We'll get to that, I guess, here in a second.
Right. And let's see, from an injury standpoint this morning, Mike, the guys that have been week to week and obviously not practicing aren't going to play. That means don't expect to see TJ Watt out there. Don't expect to see Vance McDonald out there. Ramon Foster. Go down the list with me, Alex. I
doubt Grimble plays. He's still got that cast on.
Yeah, Grimble. I'm trying to pull up my post here on the injuries here real quick here. He didn't name people by name. He said, look, the guys dealing with injury, the guys that can be characterized as week to week obviously won't play. The Vance McDonalds, there's more than one Vance McDonald. That would be nice, wouldn't it? He said it'd be nice to have plural Vance McDonald's and Ramon Fosters, guys like that. The guys that are dealing with more day-to-day injuries, the guys that have missed partial work or maybe a day or two here or there, will leave the light on for those guys with the hope that they're participants. He said Bud Dupree is out of concussion protocol. He will play. He would not say if safety Sean Davis would play Thursday night. He did, however, classify Davis as being in the day-to-day group of injured players. To my understanding, Connor was back today. Ridley was not. You want to run us down the guys that did not work today?
Sure. You hit on most of the names here. No Vance. TJ Watt, they missed the final 12 practices, so Watt feels pretty close to return. Sean Davis is kind of getting close as well. No Ridley for whatever reason. No Marcus Allen. Like to know what's going on with Marcus Allen. No Grimble with that right thumb. He's got a cast on, so I guess maybe a possible fracture there. No Ramon Foster. I think that was it in terms of the guys that were out and full. So coming out of camp with, what is that, 7 guys out? That's not too bad.
I know people say, and we cover this, every other podcast seems like, boy, all the injuries this year. I think everybody should be knocking on wood or whatever, overall. And thank goodness, nothing was serious with Antonio Brown earlier, last week or whatnot with that quad. He dang sure didn't look like he was limping today. We'll save that for David Todd and myself on the Wednesday show, that discussion. But there was a little bit of a scare, I guess, during today's practice with Ben Roethlisberger. I, of course, was not there. Why don't you walk us through what happened?
Well, I don't have the best vantage point. I think some information is slowly leaking out. Some of the players have talked about it, but it was the 4th play of 7 shots, which is the final play of the starters' work, and Ben had dropped back, and he threw a kind of a fadeaway pass to Juju for a touchdown. I didn't see any players around Ben, but, I write my notes real quick, and I'm kind of sitting there for 30 seconds, because the second team's about to come in, and I'm thinking, dang, they're taking a long time to get, this next play going. What is the problem? And then I see, okay, someone's hurt. And so I didn't have a good vantage point because you get that huddle around whoever's down, and I kind of made my way over to the other side of the bleachers, and I saw Ben get up and walk off holding, I guess, the right side of his head and sit on the water cooler. He ended up leaving. So I think Pouncey said that he stepped on someone's foot and went down and hit his head. There was no obvious contact. It wasn't like somebody took a cheap shot or somebody even unintentionally bumped into him to cause Ben to fall down. So not really sure what happened, but it sounds like Ben just stepped on a foot or slipped. It was pretty slippery today and hit the back of his head.
And they announced after practice that in concussion protocol, being checked for that. Now, Didi Kinkle-Bala of NFL Network threw out there that she wonders if Ben will if this will prevent Ben from traveling to Green Bay. I got to be honest with you, I'll be surprised if Ben doesn't travel to Green Bay for that game. If he does, God bless him, then obviously there's a little bit more going on there. But I think it's going to take a lot to keep him from being in Green Bay. So obviously, look, last day of training camp. He's obviously going to be off tomorrow. Not going to play Thursday night. They'll probably have Friday off as well too. So he's got a few days to get himself right again there. So thank goodness nothing serious. When it comes to him. Did you see anybody else get nicked up today?
I didn't, but to run through some of the guys that were in full, Dupree was full, AB was full, James Conner was full, Juju was full, Tuitt came back full, Chickalo was in pads. I don't think he was in team, not 100% sure on that. He didn't finish it, I know that for sure, so he was partial team at best. But like I said, you got 7 guys out, 4 of them are probably minor injuries or guys coming back, so to be out of camp in that kind of shape, you did pretty well for yourself.
Okay, let's go directly from there to go walking around through the position groups here. We'll spend a little bit of extra time tonight on each one of them. I know not a lot. There's probably not a lot to report, or B, you're probably not fresh on the top of your head right now about what happened Monday, but try to add up 2 days worth of practices for each position group. And then when you're done talking about each position group, why don't you kind of let us know, what guys you thought, excelled during training camp, what guys you were disappointed in, and maybe one thing that was overly surprising about the position group throughout the whole process. So we'll start with offensive line, obviously. Go.
Matt Filer, a little tougher today, working against Cam Hayward, but that's to be expected when you face Cam Hayward. Zach Banner getting working team at right tackle. So I know we talked about if he's going to be a tackler or guard. He's been working right tackle. He has the size where it's hard for guys to get around him, but if you can get outside and then get inside on a counter move, you can beat him pretty easily. You can do that today. See things that surprised me overall, guys that excelled. I thought Okorafor, got comfortable and kind of settled in after a tough start to camp, especially as he got elevated first team with some of the injuries there. So I thought he finished strong. I thought, looking back at the tape the whole way through now at the Eagles game, I thought he played well. Patrick Morris has some issues with the size, getting bull rushed. So some of those reach blocks are going to be tough for him. He just isn't the biggest guy or the longest player. But it's largely a group that you kind of know. I thought Matt Filer had a good camp overall. I thought he did really well in the game against Philadelphia. I have some confidence in him moving forward. I've compared him to Foster before, so I think I've kind of touched on it all. I think it's a group that you kind of knew, and I think you got some progress out of Chuck Okorafor.
I know Jake Rogers for a little bit. You were talking about him, not doing too bad, but it seems like he's been not sure. I mean, not that it's a bad thing, but just really nondescript, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, I think he had a better start than the way he ended it. I mean, it's not significantly one way or the other. It wasn't an amazing start. It wasn't a terrible finish. I thought in the game he was okay. He's a guy, obviously, that has some tackle versatility, like most tackles in the Steelers camp would. He can play left and right. I still think practice squad with him, I'd be, at this point, pretty surprised to see him be that ninth offensive lineman. I'd be pretty surprised to see anyone be the ninth offensive lineman.
So you think they're going to end up going with 8 and pretty much the standard 8 we've been floating around for a while?
Yes, unless they go outside the organization, if there's some guy they really like. I mean, obviously those odds are low, but I don't think there's a guy in-house that's going to be number 9. Oh. Unless Foster's not going to be ready and they have to do something with the contingency plan there.
All right, who's your best practice squad candidates at this time? Obviously, Rodgers, you think – I mean, I know it's still early on Banner. I mean, we'll have to see what happens against Green Bay and the rest of the preseason. But he's got a shot now at this point, right? I mean, he is pedigree. He supposedly got his weight under control, according to Kevin Colbert, and they could potentially maybe use another tackle.
Yeah. Usually, if they keep 8, it'll likely be 1 tackle, 1 interior guy. I started this process with Rodgers and Morris. I'll keep it there for now. It won't be Joseph Cheek. It won't be Chris Schluger. Parker Collins could have had a chance if he stayed healthy. So short answer, I'll go Rodgers and Morris, but still subject to change.
Okay, running backs. You had a few tidbits on Jalen Samuels today.
Thought it was a good day for Jalen Samuels, especially as a pass protector. Those 2-minute drill they had at end camp for the first and second team offense, Samuels played the bulk of the time. Connor got a little bit of work early, but I think they intentionally had Samuels as basically the guy to give him as many opportunities in pass protection as possible. Now, with Samuels, we've seen improvement in pass protection in camp, no doubt about that. Whenever he's able to identify where the blitz is coming from, he can get square. He has kind of the size and the anchor and the 1-2 to pick it up. There was the throw by Mason Rudolph in the 2-minute drill for a touchdown, a great safety blitz pickup on Burnett by Jalen Samuels. The issue is identifying where that blitz is going to come from. He can be slow to scan and to get to a spot in time. I think today it was a Cam Sutton that came free on a nickel blitz, and Samuels didn't see it till it was way too late. So when he sees it, there's progress. It's about just finding it consistently, and of course he's still going to have some bumps in the road.
You still on board with Samuels being a virtual lock?
Did I say virtual lock before? I know you and DT had the discussion yesterday. I don't know if I ever did I call him a lock or anything close to that? Do you remember?
I think pretty sure, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I said
fairly positive or something along those lines.
Yeah, I know I said I was confident, and
okay, maybe that's what you said.
Yeah, and I still believe that. I wouldn't call him a lock. I mean, I agree with David Todd in that, but I disagree with David Todd to consider him a long shot, especially since I know David Todd even agreed there's a chance that they keep 4 running backs. I mean, that would almost make me feel like it's a lock if you knew they were keeping 4, that Samuels wouldn't be the odd man out. So I believe he's still going to make it. He's gotten too much work in the first team. He's too flexible. Now, they may use him more as a receiver than a runner. I'm okay with that. I think maybe he's even a better receiver than a runner right now, to be honest with you. But I'd be surprised if he got cut.
If they did keep 4 plus Rosie Nix, who would be the final two? Obviously, Samuels, you think would be one of them. Is it Ridley? Is it Toussaint?
That's a good question. I know both did well against Philadelphia. I'd still lean Ridley because I think there's more there as a runner. But again, it's going to be an evaluation issue of special teams where Toussaint probably gets the edge versus pure runner where Ridley's definitely going to get the edge. But again, I know that Ridley and Toussaint played better than Samuels against Philadelphia, but you would expect that two veteran guys would have a different play speed than a rookie or, playing with a bunch of other rookies for that matter. So if I had to guess today, if they keep 4, and I think they will, it'll be Samuels and Stephen Ridley.
Okay, the tight ends. Boy, you want to talk about a group not fun to talk about right now. I mean, you got, obviously, you've had Vance McDonald sidelined for most of camp. Grimble's missed the last, 3 or 4 practices. God bless Jesse James. We know what he is and isn't, so no reason to spend a lot of time there. I mean, really the only other guy I think, I know you know a lot about Pharaoh McKeever, more so than you did when camp started, but is that going to be enough to keep him around past the preseason?
It's a good point. And since you have the roster exemption for Christian Scotland Williamson, you could just have the one tight end and call it a day. Yeah, none of those guys were super impressive. There's progress over camp. I thought, again, McKeever did flash vertical at points. Hodges did as well. McKeever and Hodges, they're basically cut from the same cloth. They're big receivers who can't block and can stretch the field vertical. So it's almost a take your pick there. Let's see who does better in the preseason. Xavier Grimble, just disappointing again. I mean, there were a couple moments where he flashed, but it's the same old song and dance with Xavier Grimble. He'll have that practice or two or play or two, and then he fades, and then he gets hurt, and he's not available. And he'll make it, and I still want to like Xavier Grimble. He just makes it really difficult to try to get me to talk highly about him.
Yeah, and if McDonald, as we've said a few times, if he doesn't get healthy and stay healthy this year, that's it. And of course Jesse's right now still scheduled to be unrestricted next year. How many more years you going to roll with Grimble? I don't think many, to be honest with you. So this position group could really look a lot different this same time next year for sure. Okay, wide receiver. Lord have mercy, am I excited about this group, and I seem to get more excited every time we get on this podcast. And I am really hoping, being as how Tomlin has made a decision to go with the young quarterbacks Thursday night against Green Bay, that why not throw those young kids out there? And I'm talking about James Washington, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Damone Patterson right from the get-go, or Tucker. I guess it depends on how much you need to see out of Juju. But quite honestly, I think Juju could use some snaps. I won't be mad either way, but I think he could use some snaps. But those 4 young wide receivers, that alone, I would like to get some early work in this game. And to my understanding, Juju, Washington, and Patterson have just been, I don't want to use lights out because I'm not there. What's the best way to describe the week of practice those 3 players have had?
I think impressive. Maybe lights out's a touch too strong, but you use good adjectives to describe it for sure.
James Washington, I would get my English teacher would roll over. I don't know if she's still alive or not.
But James Washington just plucks passes off of corners' heads every single practice. He did it today to Malik Reeves in one-on-one. He did it twice yesterday, I think in team against Hayden, and I think Sensabaugh as well. So his ability to time his jumps, high point the football, 39-inch vertical, and he plays every bit of it. Be physical, strong at the catch point, and come down with his feet on balance. Really good body control and awareness for a young guy. Obviously, it's an adjustment for the college guys going to the NFL and now getting 2 feet in bounds. Even the catch against the Eagles, that jump ball that he had on the 35-yard completion. The catch itself was really impressive, but just tapping that, I think it was the right foot in bounds before falling down, Just good body control awareness. He's been good. Patterson, obviously, we've talked about him, and he's been impressive this past week. Juju's been excellent to finish things out. Was a guy that quarterbacks were looking at their first read constantly today, and did well in 7 shots. Caught, I think, 2 touchdown passes. So him and Hilton have good battles. But yeah, the depth has been. It's on the upswing. Even a Trey Griffey, I thought, had a better kind of back half of training camp than he did to start. Now some guys like Tevin Jones are falling back, Justin Thomas, Quadri Henderson never even got out of the starting gate, but you're seeing some good depth there, and I'm excited to watch this group continue to grow.
Unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of college tape because of the school we went to on Patterson. So that limited our knowledge or what we thought we knew about him after he was signed. Now still, I contend that you pretty much nailed that in the limited amount of tape that you had on him in that initial write-up, which seems like a full year ago now. But with that said, what did you learn most about Patterson that you didn't know before over the course of these last 15 practices?
I think his ability to get separation on some of the in-breaking routes. I'm looking over my scouting report of him after he got signed right now. I said he may struggle to get separation on short and intermediate routes at the next level, and I thought he did a better job of that. Said he has to make sure he's the same guy on every snap. His different stance was used, but I think he's cleaned some of that stuff up. I think to answer the question matter-of-factly, I think the biggest thing I learned about him, which you'll learn about any rookie, is just mental toughness. Like I said, that first week he was great. And for a rookie to come in and really have a nice start of practice, that's a good feeling. But that second week of practice, he caught 4 or 15 passes, had 2 drops, would have been touchdowns. That's tough. So how do you respond from that adversity? This really kind of hot start? Is it luck? Is it skill? You have that second week, everyone going, okay, maybe this guy's not the real deal. Then you get into a game, your first game ever, and you have a heck of a performance on offense and special teams as well with the tackle. So just seeing his mental toughness, rising to the moment, that's something you don't know about any rookie, first-round pick, tryout kid like Patterson. Doesn't matter. You just never know until they're in that situation. I thought he rose to the moment, and that's impressive to see.
I mean, you're with me, though, right? You would when it comes to Patterson and Washington Thursday night, you'd light the candle on both ends of that and just let it burn for a long time, wouldn't you?
Yeah, the Hugh Jackson punishment, play the whole game. I'm not opposed to it. Get him those reps, man.
I'm all for it. I'd like to see both those kids play 40 something snaps. Most definitely. I'm on board for that because I think Tomlin put it best during the press conference today. Let's talk about Patterson specifically, saying some positive things, but he did say there were some things in that game that we're not talking about.
And you had it right on that skinny post you ran, Dave. I looked at it again. You were 100% right. Too much wasted movement, not on the corner's toes, not a good route at all.
Right, and it's slow. And well, what else did you write about the young group that needs to be cleaned up either yesterday or the day before?
Just some basic stuff. Some of the hot routes. The Rudolph sack was on a missed hot route from James Washington running the mesh. They couldn't run the mesh to save their life. Either guys just not running it at all or not getting the correct spacing, so you're not creating that rub. And I'm sure there's 20 other things that I don't know about that Darryl Drake does to clean up. So, yeah, I mean, it was good performances from Washington and Patterson, but still you could find 5-10 things easily that you have to work on with that group.
All right, am I using too much hyperbole when I you've been out there for what, 3? Is this your 4th year out there, Alex?
5th, actually.
Oh, my Lord.
I was there 2014, yeah.
I remember when you was just a young little thing.
Don't make me feel old, Dave.
Okay, am I using too much hyperbole when it comes to thinking that this might be the best group of young wide receivers we've had in the camp in a while, or at least since you've been going out there?
Yeah, it could be. I'd have to look at some of the old names. I feel like we say some of this stuff every year. I feel like Ben gets asked
and we
question.
do. Well, we probably do. Yeah. But I mean, yeah. I don't know. It just feels like we might look back. Remind me to look back if none of these guys make it or stick or whatnot, and say, Dave, you remember you said that last year about Patterson and Washington and Tucker, and here we are. So make sure to make a mental note of that because
I liked Tomlin's reference of the Cortez Allen, Curtis Brown. Sometimes you forget about that stuff way after the fact.
Do you? I mean, honestly, I know it's hard to imagine. I mean, look, he's got to make the 53 still. And folks, look, we don't mean to spend this much time on it, but this is the last podcast, of training camp. But look, I mean, you have the high draft pick invested in Washington. But if both these kids play well the rest of the preseason and ascend, as Mike Tomlin says, there's a good chance that Patterson makes the 53 along with Washington's obviously a lock. Could because of Patterson's physicality and the way he might help on special teams, depending on who is kept at the position in addition to those two, quite possibly could we have a two dogs one bone situation during the first couple weeks of the season with those two, talking about Washington and Patterson?
Well, I don't think Washington would ever lose a hat to Patterson. I think that it could be a two dog one bone with, say, Justin Hunter and Damon Patterson, but I don't think, because they play different positions too. You're talking X versus Z, so I don't think it'd ever come to one of those. I don't think Washington would ever lose a spot to Patterson. I'll say that much.
Didn't Mike Tomlin sit Emmanuel Samuels down one early game during the 2010?
For AB, who got the hat instead?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Let's see. Yeah, Sanders sat week 2 against the Titans it was 2010, right? That's her rookie season, right?
Yeah, it'd be rookie year. Now AB got the hat. Are you sure on that?
AB got the hat. Now,
because he had the touchdown that game, I guess, on the kick return.
Yes, he did. Sanders was inactive for that game. Now, I'll have to go back and research to see if there was an injury involved there. I don't remember there being. I think that's where all this got into a little bit more the two dogs one bone thing. Look, I'm not saying that we're going to get 5 games, 6 games into this season and Washington's not dressing. I mean, he's going to dress a lot earlier than Martavis Bryant did during his rookie season. I'm just wondering, could we find ourselves in a position with the numbers game in these first couple of games where it could be a two dog one bone thing?
Yeah, I don't think it'll get to that. Here's my assessment of James Washington, Dave. As long as the rest of the camp preseason goes the way the camp did, Washington's going to be your starting receiver in 11 personnel week 1 against Cleveland. I think he will be. I hope that he is. Obviously it'll be Juju and AB in 2 receiver sets, but when they go 11, it's going to be James Washington starting out there.
Sanders also sat the following week against Tampa Bay. And AB dressed for that game as well too. So I won't bore people with history. I do have a good memory when it comes to this stuff, though.
You do.
Okay, quarterbacks.
You got to give it up to Mason Rudolph. I know that there were some fairly high expectations, but you never know what you're going to get in a rookie quarterback. And I just thought, again, poise and command and just kind of playing beyond his years from that standpoint. As you've talked about before, Dave, the way that he talks, the way that he carries himself, there's confidence that doesn't slide into arrogance. He's able to toe that line well. I think he runs the 2-minute drill really well. I want to see him do that in a game the way that Dobbs did last week. Even today, running the 2-minute drill, a great job of that. Everything clean, the ball rarely on the ground. I don't know if Rudolph even threw an incompletion today. I'd have to go back and look at it, but let him down for a touchdown pass. So just seeing the poise and the command I thought was impressive with Mason Rudolph. Josh Dobbs, again, wasn't bad, had its moments. I just thought it was too flighty, too inconsistent for a second-year guy. And we know that Landry Jones is sitting against Green Bay, so that almost essentially says that he has a spot. And now you're doing it's not two dogs, one bone with Rudolph and Dobbs. Rudolph has it, so you really feel like Dobbs is an odd man out here.
Manuel Sanders,
You're back on that.
I got, when I get it, I gotta know. I got to know. So I talked to Scott Brown, formerly of the Tribune Review today. He says, Dave, can you ever turn it off, or do you ever turn it off? I said, no. I said, no, I can't. Lord didn't put an off button on me, and it's both a blessing and a curse at the same time. Inactive week 2 because of a quad. Was questionable that week, but he didn't dress the following week either. I promise I'm done with 2010 research there. What are you expecting out of these two kids Thursday night?
I mean, really more of the same. You're looking for guys that make a profit every snap, that are being clean, efficient with the football. Dobbs, I want to see get the ball out a little bit quicker, a little bit more of a rhythm kind of guy. Again, there were two passes against the Eagles where the ball came out late. One got picked, one could have been picked. Rudolph, I'd love to see some more situational football, more red zone work, end of half stuff. Hopefully, an opportunity presents itself, but just being clean, making good decisions, checking down when you have to. Nothing wrong with the check down. Nothing wrong with taking a sack when you have to. And I thought Rudolph did both those things well against the Eagles.
I don't remember the velocity numbers on the two. Obviously, Rudolph's wasn't, at the combine where the other top quarterbacks were. I know that's got a lot of people scared. His overall arm strength. You and I think, talked to Charlie Batch, about that, a few weeks ago and all. But would you like to have put Josh Dobbs' throwing arm on Mason Rudolph? Minus the accuracy.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Dobbs has a bit better arm than Mason Rudolph, but I don't think Rudolph's arm is going to limit him in any significant way. It's not Ben, it's probably not Dobbs, and even Landry Jones has a good deep ball, but it's also early for Mason Rudolph, so I'm sure deep ball gets better when you get used to the speed of the receivers you're throwing to. Obviously, the other quarterbacks have a big leg up on that over Rudolph. So I haven't seen it as any sort of hindrance in Mason Rudolph's game.
Yeah, and really his college tape says the same thing, because there was all that talk pre-draft about velocity and arm strength. Now, granted, is he going to be able to pop one? Maybe you can speak to this. Do you have a recollection of what the furthest ball he threw during camp? I mean, did you see him pop 155 or over?
That's a really good question. I think they did a Hail Mary from midfield that landed back of the end zone.
You charting these stats now, you stat geek. You should have all this.
I got to get a life.
There's an inside joke there. Hopefully some of the listeners picked up on it. Go ahead.
I would say he topped out. There was the Hail Mary, but that's kind of a different situation. So as far as that wasn't the Hail Mary was, and I'm just guessing, was probably about 45 to 50 yards. But I'm not 100% sure on that, and I don't have those things exactly charted, so I'd be guesstimating no matter what.
Right, it is so tough to do. I understand. It's one thing to watch for moving forward, to see if arm strength can be developed. Because let me tell you, Ben can still pop them out there, with the best of them. So, okay. Anything else you'd like to talk about offensively? What kind of camp did Rosie have?
He was fine. He just got some first team, obviously fullback work, a little bit of work as a receiver early that kind of faded the rest of the way. But I think they tried to put a little bit of bubble wrap on him because he is the only fullback, and if you lose him, you do lose a fairly important dimension of your offense. So no carries, I think, with Rosie Nix this camp, which is probably a little disappointing.
Outside of some read option, anything surprise you scheme wise?
I did want to mention yesterday that, or from yesterday's practice, that they ran, I don't know if you'd call it a jet sweep, but kind of a jet sweep with Jalen Samuels, where Samuels was split out wide. He came across the formation. Dobbs pitched it forward to him, kind of, sort of. There wasn't a true mesh point, but he kind of pitched it forward. Then Dobbs spun away to the right, and Samuels cut up the gut. So maybe they're doing a couple concepts with that, putting in a little bit of crazy stuff now that you're pretty knee deep into camp, and obviously now camp is over. So something to keep an eye on that. And then some of the read option stuff, Dave. I don't know what your thoughts are. Is that just a look when you face running quarterbacks, or could Feetner be planning something kind of crazy?
Yeah, unless you want your quarterback killed, I'd try to stay away from that. And about that Jalen Samuel stuff, going through his tape from North Carolina State, I mean, especially his 2017 tape, that he registered 8 receptions. They credit him with a reception on such plays. So that's something he did that they might be trying to tailor to him. So being as how, and you saw some of that this week?
I saw it once. It was kind of a jet sweep like play.
All right. So if we see that, odds we see that Thursday night. 50-50?
Probably. Probably even lower than that. I just wanted to point it out because as soon as it happened, I thought of you, and because you researched all the jet sweep stuff, and I wanted to bring that out to your attention.
A lot of window dressing or no?
Kind of, sort of, but it's nothing more than Haley. Some of it's by design.
It's not Kansas City level then, right?
No, it's not Kansas City level. It's not probably what McVay and the Rams do. But some of the window dressing is designed to get guys open. So, for example, today in 7 shots, they had AB motion across from left to right. As soon as he got to the right side, they snapped the football, throw a swing past him, he scores. So the corner's trailing, trying to get over in time. So they do some of that stuff. They might be holding some of that back. Some of that stuff may get installed as you get farther into the preseason. So we'll watch for it more. But a decent amount, nothing too crazy from what I've seen, though.
Okay, let's switch over to the defensive side of the football here. Defensive line, that's got to be the hardest group. That and offensive line, I would guess, would be the hardest group to have to analyze during training camp. Am I right?
Right, just because they're the trench guys. And this year was especially tough because they didn't really have as many O-line, D-line sessions with all the days in shorts. If they're in shorts and shells, you're not doing O-line, D-line one-on-one work like that. They did do it today, thankfully, but that's always a tough group because you just get bodies jumbled up. It's hard to see who had this gap, who had the block, or who secured the block or defeated the block or whatever the case is. So, it's a bit of a tough group to evaluate.
All right, people that stuck out the last couple of days, overall views of the position throughout camp, go.
Yeah, it's a little tight end like in the back end. I think it's generally unchanged at the top. You have your 5, Hayward, Hargrave, Tuitt, Alulu, Walton. Those 5 are locks. Your 6 spot, I still put McCullers as the 6. I had Gilmore to start in camp. That's definitely not going to happen. I was totally wrong about that. Frazier's snap count and play has generally been of a practice squad candidate. He's had some nice moments, but the snap count hasn't really been there. And what was it, 4 snaps against the Eagles, running 13 nose tackles. So, McCullers is likely to get that 6 spot as we sit here today. Practice squad, maybe Levon Hooks. I thought Levon Hooks played the run well, but no one that really jumped out at you.
Any of those, Cawthorn, any kind of maybe 5 tech worth hanging on to?
Besides Hooks, if you want new guys, I think Kendall Vickers might be the best guy. He's got a little bit of power, a little bit of ball awareness, tiny bit of better pass rusher than Cawthorn and Gilmore, but they're all kind of similar. Cam Hayward might have a spin move this year. I don't know if he's just showing it for guards to get used to it or what, but spin move's been pretty effective in camp.
Tuitt look healthy?
Yep, he's been good. I know he was sick yesterday. He was full today. I don't have a whole lot of notes on Tuitt. Him and DeCastro always have good battles in one-on-one, but I think Tuitt's healthy, and that's good enough for me.
All right, outside linebacker. Good to hear that Bud Dupree is back out there and is going to play against the Packers. I don't know how much he's going to play. I would imagine not too terribly much, being as how this was his first practice back. In what's it been, a week? It was Friday Night Lights, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that was, I think, August 4th. So it's been 10 days.
Wow. I mean, he's probably not going to play much of any. Of course, T.J. Watt's going to sit out. So we're going to see a lot of Ola. We're going to see a lot of Keon Adams. We're going to see, hopefully, maybe some Chicolo, you would think. Huguenin. And that's...
Yep. That's it. Matthew Thomas maybe on the edge.
Yeah, Matthew Thomas getting some rush snaps off the edge and some certain. He did that like 6 or 7 times, I think, the other night against the Eagles. And not bad either, in those kind of unique situations there. I mean, did Adams meet the hype?
What would you consider the hype?
I have no idea. I mean, we really didn't know what we were dealing with in this camp, other than they didn't draft an edge rusher, and they obviously think there's enough there, as a former draft pick, and there was just a lot. I don't know if it should have been classified more as hype or as general in excitement with him kind of really being a new player, but. Did he live up to any maybe preconceived expectations that you had?
I thought he had a good camp. I thought it got better as it went on. His run defense seemed to improve. Had a nice day with his run D on Monday. He ran first team today, left outside linebacker. And I ran a Chick may have not been in there, but Dupree did. And so you see Adams get some snaps over Huguenin. And I talked about that before. Why is Huguenin run over Adams consistently? So you saw a switch today. I thought it was a good camp. I think he's a good athlete. I think he's got quick, efficient hand use. We kind of recapped Adams about a week ago, and I have the same idea now. Now it's about, and I thought Tomlin made a great point of it today, is getting that work on special teams. Because if you're a number 4 outside linebacker, you're a number 5 or whatever the case is, you better be able to play on special teams. And I think Adams has a skill set to do that. Denier, as impressive as a pass rusher as he's been, that's going to be the huge thing for him. And I've said that a million times by now, but I just can't stress it enough. So it's interesting. I thought Adams and Denier had good camps, but they just could not be any different of a type of player.
Are you keeping both of them?
Yes. Yes, I would.
So you're keeping 5 of them in total then?
Yes, and a day and I'm going to say his name wrong a million times, but he'd be inactive for me because I don't think he's going to be great on special teams.
And that would make sense for sure. Are you going to keep any edge rusher on a practice squad? Would it be Farrington Hugan in it?
I mean, it's who else would you keep if you're keeping a day and on the 53? So I think Hugan would warrant a spot there. It just depends on how other stuff fits, but he would warrant it, sure.
All right, inside linebacker. Boy, I can't wait to watch this group play against the Packers. It's Bostic, right?
It's likely to be Bostic, and I'll give Bostic a lot of credit. You hear him every day. He's vocal. A big communicator. He talked about that leading into camp, that he gets mad if guys aren't talking. That's a big kind of pet peeve for him. So I think that's going to be one of the big deciding factors in that.
He is so easy to pick out on tape. He is so easy to wait. He squats so low. Pre-snap, he is so, and plus he's always pointing those arms, and you can see him jabbering out there. He's always so easy to pick out on tape. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if either of them had bad camps. Matakevich is very active in the run session, which you would expect, but obviously it's what happens in game. And again, you go back to, can these guys make plays in coverage? And honestly, Dave, I don't know if either of them made one play in coverage all camp. I think Bostic made one on a seam out to Juju that he broke up, but they're just kind of 2 down in the NFL today, where you're passing more than you're running even on first down. What does a 2 down backer even kind of bring you? So they're certainly going to be concerned for that position. I thought Matthew Thomas had a nice camp. LJ Fort, we've talked about how I think he's kind of gotten a raw deal before. Keith Kelsey, I think, has improved as kind of a 2 down run thumper in himself. And Colombo's is that he's awful in coverage in some of those 1-on-1 drills. But it's going to be a weak point for this group. They're going to have to scheme around these guys to try to make it work.
You keeping Fort and Thomas?
Yep. As we sit here today, I'd keep 5 inside guys as well.
So you'd keep 10 in total. You think along the lines that I do. I want plenty. I want plenty of those guys because I don't want. Well, obviously, you're not going to have Watt playing special teams this year.
Yep.
Boston. I mean, you got to have Matakevich on special teams.
Mm-hmm.
You need some of those. Other Chicolo's obviously going to play special teams. Obviously, you're not going to dress 1 or 2 of those guys a week. Guys like Matthew Thomas might not get a helmet to start the season, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But there might be enough there to work with on there.
I think you just want to go heavy with that group for special teams, like you said, but also just to keep the competition at that group high. Because I think the best way you manage, I won't say solve because you probably won't solve it, but to manage this group is just to keep that competition high, that definitely a 2-dog, 1-bone kind of mentality there, and just keep the fire lit under these guys. I think you've seen that in camp where they've elevated the play of each other, and that's the best way to try to get to maximize that group.
All right, cornerback. We won't lump them all together tonight. We'll go cornerback. It sounds like and look like from the highlights that you get off of the Twitter machine that Artie Burns had a heck of a camp, and Cody Sensabaugh too.
They did. Burns had a good camp last year, so I do want to preface with that, but I thought this year was just as good, probably better, because I think the hands and finishing some of those plays were better. He finished with 4 interceptions, which I think led the team. I haven't done all the math, but they had so many picks this year. But he had 4, which is one of the top numbers. I think the leader in the 5 years I've been there is Kevin Fogg with 5. So Burns was close to it. Sensabaugh was a vet, and him and Washington had good battles early on. Sensabaugh was winning a lot of those battles versus Washington. The back half, Washington started winning those battles instead of Sensabaugh, but good camps there. I know some people kind of felt concerned about Joe Hayden. Someone asked me, is he struggling? I thought he had a fine camp. I'm not too worried about Joe Hayden in training camp setting. Good group overall. Hilton's amazing. I love Mike Hilton. Just the mentality and how good he is at the catch point. And, Brian Allen, I'm a little mixed. I kind of thought about it some more, having some conversation with some Steelers Depot readers. I don't think he's been terrible. But I don't know if it's been as good as some of these other cornerbacks as well.
Is he cuttable?
I wouldn't do it. I think there's too much potential. There's still a second-year guy that was playing receiver a couple years ago. I'm not sure who you're cutting him for. Are you going to trade the long-term potential of Brian Allen against the short-term value, whatever that is, of Cody Sensabaugh? And Allen's still a good special teamer that I thought did well as a gunner and is kind of that height, weight, speed guy you want running down punts.
You're keeping 6 of those, right?
Corners?
Yeah.
So Sensabaugh is your 6?
I mean, I'm asking, are you going to keep 5 or are you going to keep 6? And if you're keeping 6, is it Sensabaugh? I think, obviously, if you're keeping 6, then it's probably going to be Sensabaugh, right?
Yeah, if you're keeping 6, it's not going to be like Deshaun Phillips or Shamar Summers. That gets into the roster construction issue because we agreed we're keeping 10 linebackers. So if you're keeping 6 corners, that means 4 safeties, I think, because I don't think you can do 10 linebackers and 11 DBs. It just gets way too heavy at that point. I think, right?
Well, what way I've been pushing with the 4 safeties as of late, because let me tell you, before we get it, anything else you want to wrap up? Is this the best group of cornerbacks that the Steelers have had in camp in 4 or 5 years?
I don't know. I feel like Ben when I answer these questions. I'm too old. They all jumble together.
You got a veteran. It's definitely better than the group that they came out of training camp with last year, right?
Yeah, and definitely better than the last 2 to 3 years.
All right, because of course, obviously, Joe Hayden wasn't in camp last year.
Yeah. I think it's fair. You could probably make a good argument for that. Sure.
And this should be. We should know what we have in Artie Burns this season. And you've got to make a decision on him after this season of whether or not you're going to pick up his option, his 5th-year option year after this year. So this guy. This better be we ought to be talking about 5, 6 interceptions, not having those lapses on defense, and being a little bit more physical and coming up against the run, right?
Yeah, that's the big thing for me. The interceptions would be gravy, and I think that this group will have more interceptions this year, but it's about consistency. If you can get the same Artie Burns as last year with consistency, not blowing coverages, not missing tackles, his run fits being strong, you'll have a good player, and you'll have someone to be excited about for the next 5 to 7 years. So the interceptions would be nice, but I don't need them for Burns to have a good year. Now, to get back to your question, you can't have 10 linebackers and 11 DBs because then you'll have, with 6 defensive linemen, you'll have 27 on defense, and that's a spot too heavy. So you're thinking 4 safeties?
Yes, and I will transition into that now. Now, as much as we think we might like the cornerback group this year, there's some questions still about Burnett. He's up there a little bit. What did you think about his first camp in Pittsburgh? What do you think about Nat Burray, who's obviously going to make this roster as one of the 4, we think, and the rookie Terrell Edmonds?
Burnett was a little nondescript. Obviously, he missed the beginning with the hamstring. Burhay was the guy always around the football, especially in run sessions. Same with Dangerfield. Edmonds, I thought, had a good camp overall. Maybe it didn't always pop in team the way it popped in one-on-ones, but you saw some of the athletic traits translate and some of the things that got him drafted. So, maybe there was a slight overhype on Edmonds, especially early in camp, but I was excited about what he did, and I think that you have a good player, at least potentially a good player in Edmonds.
Did you see enough Sean Davis at free safety to get a good feel of how that's going to go?
It's always tough when you're seeing it live and you're not always seeing the deep safety and exactly what he's doing. So I'm more excited to kind of watch it in game, and especially once you get the all 22 the first couple weeks of the regular season. But I thought it was fine for him. Obviously he's dealing with a groin injury right now, so hopefully he'll be back soon, and I think he will be. He looked close to a return. You have your answers and your questions at the safety spot. Marcus Allen, obviously there's the injury, which I don't know what's going on there. Could that be something serious that makes a decision for you? Possibly. Jordan Dangerfield. I like that Matthew Marks put Jordan Dangerfield on his 53-man roster. Had a good day today and things with 2 breakups and a good run session. So is it impossible for Jordan Dangerfield to make the 53?
As a fifth safety, I think so.
Yeah. You think it's impossible?
Yeah, and look, Marcus Allen missing this time in camp's not good. That's not good. That's definitely not good on a team that might not keep 5 safeties. It's just not good.
If they kept 5, who would your 5th be?
Allen? Yeah, I guess so. I mean, because I know that Jordan Dangerfield will always be by the phone.
Yeah. Oh, is he still practice squad eligible? I can't keep up with these rules anymore.
I don't think he is. I think this might be it for him.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I haven't gotten to that point in the offseason where I need to calculate that. It's getting close, though.
Yep.
I just, missing time's not good. He's you've got probably your core other guy, or you obviously have your core other guy in Burray. Terrell Edmonds is going to be a partial core guy to start with on special teams. Where do you need Allen?
Well, yeah, it just could be a replacement when because an injury is going to happen. But you could put him on the practice squad, I guess, and just call him up if you need.
Right, he's not going to get claimed off waivers.
No, especially if he's not going to be playing these next. I don't think he's going to play against the Packers. Don't know that for sure, but I don't think he will. Missing 3 to 4 days before a game. So yeah, probably not enough tape out there, and he's not going to make 3 interceptions. That's not his game, so probably won't get claimed.
Right. If I had my guess right now, my back end, I'd keep 10. It'd probably be the 10 that I had on the last one. I think I kept Sensabaugh as number 6 corner, and I kept the 4 safeties.
Run through the safeties. The 4 you think will be kept, just to put it in my head.
Oh, Davis, Burnett, Burray, Edmonds.
That's it.
And that's it.
Would you keep Malik Golden on the practice squad? Have you thought that far?
I haven't seen him. You got to remember, right. I haven't seen him since last preseason.
He played Thursday.
I did see him too then. Yeah. And I didn't focus in on him.
I just say that because if you cut Dangerfield entirely, let's assume he's not practice squad eligible, and you don't keep Golden, then you're literally only having 1 returning safety from last year on the entire roster. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing because the safety group wasn't very good last year, but I just wonder if that's part of the consideration if you're just totally revamping that group in a summer. I don't know if that's going to play a factor at all.
Yeah, where I'm sitting right now and looking, we got 3 preseason games to go, so a lot can change with what.
Yeah,
so,
I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, so where I'm sitting right now, I'm keeping 10, and I'm only keeping four safeties in that group. Anything else? We saw some dollar, and look, I know a lot of people are excited about the potential of the 7 DBs and all like that. Fact of the matter is, we're probably not going to see a whole heck of a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, it won't be a large part no matter what they decide. I'm just curious when they'll decide between dime versus dollar. I think dollar is something you definitely want to use in obvious pass situations. So let's say end of half, end of game, opposing offense is down by 7. There's a minute, 20 left. Let's get the dollar out there. But do you want to run dollar on 3rd and 8 in just a normal situation where you're trying to, because you had a good discussion about the communication, who's got the green dot, who's doing this and that, and do you want to try to run guys on and off the field like that? Road games, that could be tough, where your position on the field could be tough if you're away from the football. So if I had to guess, I think you're going to see dollar only in those truly obvious pass situations, and then you'll get dime in your general 3rd and 5+ like the last 2 years.
I like Terrell Edmonds down low. In the middle
he won't be down low. He'll be at a safety spot, strong
Yeah,
safety spot.
but I'm saying I like his play down low.
Yeah.
Uh,
It'll be Burnett down there.
mm,
At least that's how it's been in camp. They haven't had Edmonds come down in that spot. It's been Burnett and Sutton in the dollar look, and I assume Sutton won't be part of dime if we're keeping Edmonds in there. So Burnett will replace, I guess, Vince Williams.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's not, well, look, we'll be charting it. I mean, we'll have the number. We're not going to learn much about it. We might learn a little bit more about it in the first quarter against the Packers, maybe, right? But and I don't know how much in preseason game number 3 you're going to show that, and does it really matter what they show in the fourth one?
No, if they show it at all, it'll be in the third game because that's generally the one you're going to do the most game planning for and have your most, your heaviest stuff. And they didn't game plan at all against the Eagles. They were just spot drop zone the entire game. So I don't think you're going to see it against Green Bay. Maybe against who's the third team? You know who the third week is?
Is it Atlanta?
Is it? I don't know. I should have looked it up. But whatever week 3 is, I think that's your best chance to see dime/dollar.
No, it's the Titans is the third one.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right. Anything else to add about the defense? Wrapping it up.
Look at my notes here. Vince Williams. Got to give a shout out to Vince Williams. Nice camp. Good day on Monday. Another fine day today. Do you hear me, Dave? Still?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Well, my computer just froze, so that's not a good sign. But hopefully this keeps on keeping on.
Okay. Winners of training camp.
Oh, that's a heavy question. I'm going to have an article on that for the morning, so I'm going to leave it kind of as a tease because, one, I have to kind of go through
All right,
my
well, I won't spoil it for you. Let's go. Let's just go biggest surprise. Name me the biggest surprise off, 2 biggest surprises, either good or bad on the offensive side of football that went against maybe any type of bias or preconceived notion that you may have had.
Well, I know that we talked about, Patterson before camp, but you never really know. You talk up a lot of guys before camp. So I think, again, just to see him have a really nice time, even fighting through some of the growing pains he had that second week was impressive. And James Conner, I know that we expected good things. We knew he lost some weight. You're hoping to see him have a nice camp, but just to actually see it, you have more confidence in that backup running spot, especially from just a kind of do-it-all assignment standpoint and then as a runner. So, Conner and Patterson, I thought were pleasant surprises.
All right, defensively, same thing.
Defensively, again, McCullers, I thought, again, just impressive based on the expectations, not necessarily impressive in a vacuum, but just to see him play at a higher level was nice to see. You got to give the outside linebackers some credit. Adeyeye had a nice camp, and again, it was kind of what you thought. He showed at Toledo, being that speed to power pass rusher, a rip and dip kind of guy who's going to use his height to his advantage, but you never really know if it's going to work until it works, and you saw that happen. So thought he did well. I thought Matthew Thomas played better than what I expected. I thought Thomas might just look totally lost and be an athlete, but that's about it. I thought that he'd be like a Howard Jones, who I know Jones was an edge guy and Thomas is more off ball, but kind of a really athletic, but just nothing really else going on. But I thought Thomas had a good camp, so good for him. And then just 20 interceptions for this defense in camp. I mean, that's the most that I know of in the 5 years I've been going by a wide margin. So, I know it's just camp, doesn't have to translate to the games, but I see a defense that's more opportunistic, that's playing catch points better, that's more competitive, just getting their hands on the football more often and making plays.
Where do you think the value is in charting that kind of stuff? I mean, Ed Bouchette obviously doesn't think that we should do it. We're just stats geek doing it. But, I mean, there's trends and there's stuff that you can look back at. Look, you're not going to read a lot from this, obviously, and I think you even kind of caution that in these posts, or at least I think you do.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot can be read into these kind of things, but is there any kind of I don't know what the proper term or not, causation, causation, whatever. I mean, are we going to be able to point back if this team gets off to a hot start in maybe picking off some passes to saying, hey, we saw this back in training camp?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. It's hard to say for sure. I'm not saying there was an exact one-to-one correlation causation. I'm not saying because they have 20 picks in camp, they're going to, lead the NFL in interceptions during the season. There's guys making interceptions that aren't going to make the team. Keith Kelsey got a pick. Doesn't really matter if that's not going to affect the regular season. But, I just think it's a philosophy thing, especially when you have a new defensive backs coach in Tom Bradley, who I think has done a good job and has been very vocal and active and working with even the linebackers occasionally. So I think it's a philosophy thing of guys that, you're a little bit more man coverage, being more competitive on the football, just an influx of talent, obviously a bunch of new faces in there. So you're always wondering how the new faces do. But also, and again, you're right. I caution that these numbers are not the sale end all. I don't talk about these numbers all the time. The interceptions maybe more than others because it's an easy number to think about. But sometimes I look at these numbers to say, do they matter at all? You don't know if something matters unless you chart it and then try to test it. Maybe it's not going to matter at all. But until you actually chart it and have the numbers down, you won't ever know if it's useful information or not. So that's why you gather all the data you can, and then eventually you figure out what matters and what doesn't. And then the last thing I'll say to that, I care less about an individual number than I care about kind of the aggregate. And as we're now, I think, 4 or 5 years into this database of stats. So let's say I can go back and I can compare other rookies versus what rookies today are doing, or I can compare Josh Dobbs' completion percentage last year versus this year, or Dobbs the first 5 practices versus the last 5 practices, and you can kind of build some trends from there. So I look at it more as relative information against either a guy looking at himself in the past or a different player in the past, rather than just, well, this guy caught 5 touchdowns. That's great. I say, well, he caught more touchdowns than any other receiver last year, or stuff like that. So I use it all relatively more than I use it just as a standalone figure. But I don't know. It's interesting to do. No one else does it, so why not us?
Why not us? Yeah, that's a great. And who else would you expect to do that kind of stuff other than us? That's what we do.
Right. Because to do that, you have to write down every single play in camp, and that's tough to do. So that's what we get to do, and then we get to share that with you guys.
As physical of camp as you thought it would be?
No. One of the more least. That's not English. One of the least physical camps under Mike Tomlin, and you talked about it. Well, I know Kevin Colbert had mentioned it. The injuries played a factor. The rain played a factor. But yeah, they had a week ago. They had the rain shortened practice, I think it was, where they went full contact. They did kind of a thud tackling session today, but in shorts more often than not the back half of camp, and so it was not as physical as the past. But that's, again, I think partially injury and weather related because you're not tackling on turf.
Biggest fear coming out of this training camp when it comes to the Steelers in 2018?
Inside linebacker. Who was that replacement for Shazier? How do you scheme around those weaknesses? Can you scheme around those weaknesses? That is the question, and I am concerned.
Okay, Alex, look, fantastic job, brother. I mean, I don't know how many different ways I can tell you each and every year that you do this. It is absolutely fun to be on the receiving end of this on the Twitter machine, to try to get a picture kind of painted, not only in your tweets, but your fantastic recaps of the practices. And look, I know a lot of people are able to go out there at some point. Not everybody can go out there every practice like you do. There is great value in what you do, and you probably don't, just speaking through a microphone to me or writing a post, and I know you see the traffic numbers and all like that. It just, I take my hat off and hand it to you, because I think there is a lot of value in what you do, and I know that people listening to these and look, people, this isn't easy. He's got to drive to Latrobe, back and forth. That's about 45 minutes to an hour. Then got to get settled and write up your report, and then Dave's clamoring to get on the pod to get these podcasts knocked out. And we do about usually 13 or 14 of these a year on top of it, so it's no easy chore. And I really, just me personally, I really do appreciate what you do, and I think nobody does it better than you do, and I thank you.
Oh, well, I thank you as well, Dave, for giving me the opportunity. Tomorrow is, the 15th, depending on when you're listening to this, is my 5 years at Steelers Depot, if you can believe that. So you took the chance on me when I was writing for a website no one's ever heard of for free, and giving me this platform, which has been amazing. But yeah, camp's great. It's a bit of a camp grind for me, not nearly as much for me as it is the players, but they're about 12-hour days. I get to practice at 2-ish. And I'm usually working till 2, either getting the stuff done for the day and working on stuff for the next day. So it can be a lot, and I know that everything in camp does not matter. But again, we rather give you more information than not enough information, and then we'll figure out what is and isn't important after the fact. But our goal, is to make you feel like you are at practice, because I know not everyone can make it out to St. Vincent College. You got Steeler fans all over the country, all over the world. And so if we can make you feel like you were sitting on the 50-yard line, then we've done our job.
And you do that very, very well, and I certainly do appreciate it. How about a couple of shout-outs to Lynn Testa and anybody else you want to shout out here?
Yeah, Lynn Testa.
Make sure Tim gets a shout-out, too.
Nope, I had that on my mind. Tim Rice, our photographer for the early part of camp, so those pictures you see from him are huge. They're awesome photography. He gets a lot of shout-outs from the players as well, hitting them up to share some of those photos. Lynn Testa from touringplanets.com has been a big sponsor. I'll definitely do a shout-out on Twitter a little bit later, either tonight or tomorrow. If you're looking to plan a Disney trip, that's the group you want to go through. David O, Subburger, was at camp for a couple days. Good to talk to him. We love talking football history with David O. It's about the only guy I can talk to about Walt Kiesling and Burt Bell. So that's always fun. And then thank you for the support of the Steelers Nation. The people I talked to before, after practice, you all were wonderful, respectful, and I couldn't appreciate that anymore.
And we still have that tip jar going. We'll keep it open probably a few more days here. Alex will put up the link, probably tweet it out, or I don't know, put it in a post somewhere if you want to donate a little extra something Alex's way. We have that set up as well too.
One last heads up. I still haven't bought the tickets. I'm going to say that every single episode, but there's supposed to be the 19th, August 19th, the Family Fest practice, which I'm not sure exactly what practice is going to be like that far in the preseason, but I do plan on being there, so we might have one more, maybe mini version of this. I think that's on Sunday.
All right, I can't wait. Okay, Alex, I certainly do appreciate it once again. Folks, you can follow me on Twitter. Well, we hope you have enjoyed these 13 or 12, 13 episodes, special editions of the Terrible Podcast for Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2018. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. I'm the clown. You can follow Alex Kozora at Alex_Kozora. You can follow the show at Terrible Podcast. You can email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit that donate button, upper right navigational bar. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave, and tonight, Alex Kozora. Good night. Peace and love.